The BR2 and BR2XL suspension brackets are perfect for tom mounting, floor tom legs, bass drum spurs, or accessory mounting, and they both feature a tunable suspension system for making your drums sound as good as possible. If you're a proud owner of an INDe BR2 or INDe BR2XL suspension bracket, this video will bring you through the step-by-step process of how to install it, adjust it, and tear it down for service. Don't worry, this will be easy. Your BR2 or BR2XL suspension brackets come with the bracket itself, 2 M6 bolts, 2 washers, and 2 M6 lock nuts attached to the bracket, and 1 memory lock. For this installation, you will require a wrench or socket to tighten down the lock nuts, and it's always good to have a drum key handy. If you already have your BR2 or BR2XL successfully installed and you are here to learn about adjustment, skip ahead to, and if you're here to learn about teardown, skip ahead to. Okay, time for installation. Make sure you remove your stock bracket from your drum first. The BR2 and the BR2XL suspension brackets have adjustable hole spacing and will fit a wide variety of drums. The BR2s can fit a hole spacing of 1 to 2 inches, whereas the BR2XL can fit a hole spacing of 2 to 3.2 inches. Both the BR2 and the BR2XL suspension brackets share the same features. These installation, adjustment, and teardown instructions apply to both brackets. The only difference being the BR2 can fit 1 to 2 inch hole spacing, and the BR2XL can fit 2 to 3.2 inch hole spacing. In my case, my hole spacing is within 1 to 2 inches, so I will be using the BR2. Let's now remove the lock nuts and washers from our bracket. Now let's insert the bolts from our bracket into our holes. We will now reach inside our shell and reinstall the washers and lock nuts onto the bolts. Now we'll want to tighten those nuts down with our wrench or socket. That's it. Now our installation of our bracket is complete. Now let's move on to adjustment. Both the BR2 and the BR2XL feature a tunable suspension system. This system allows you to adjust the leverage of the suspension to find the sweet spot of resonance for your drum. To adjust the tunable suspension system, loosen these 2 key screws. Now you can see that our tunable suspension plate can move up and down to achieve maximum resonance and tone from your drum. It is important to note that there is not a set most resonant or least resonant position on these brackets. Every drum reacts differently and has its own unique sweet spot of resonance. Be sure to adjust the tunable suspension in small amounts until you find your drum's resonant sweet spot. Once you find your drum's resonant sweet spot, tighten down those same 2 key screws to lock it in place. That's it, adjustment complete. These same adjustments on the BR2 also apply to the BR2XL. Now let's learn how to tear this down. There are a number of reasons why you'd want to learn how to tear down your BR2 or BR2XL. 1, if your wing nut becomes stripped. 2, if your wing nut bolt becomes stripped. Or 3, if you want to swap out your wing nut for a key screw. If your wing nut becomes stripped, all you have to do is remove your old stripped wing nut and replace it with a new one. If your wing nut bolt becomes stripped or you want to swap it out with a key screw instead, you will need to remove the tunable suspension plate. To fully remove the tunable suspension plate, you will need to fully loosen and remove these 2 key screws. While you fully loosen these 2 key screws, you will feel resistance from the C-clips that are attached underneath. It is okay, continue to loosen until the C-clips pop off. They are not integral to the function of the bracket. You will see that when we removed the tunable suspension plate, this back plate came off from underneath. It's okay, let's set this aside. We will need it again later. Now with the tunable suspension plate removed, we can fully access the wing nut bolt. To do this, let's first remove the wing nut. After the wing nut is removed, the wing nut bolt can slide out from underneath. If your wing nut bolt was stripped, you can simply replace the old stripped bolt with a new one. If you wanted to swap out your wing nut for a key screw instead, you would simply insert the key screw through the top and lock it in place with a lock nut underneath. Now a key screw is installed. Let's now put the wing nut back on and reassemble the BR2. Once we have our tunable suspension plate placed back on the BR2 bracket, we now need to lock it in place with this back plate. These two key screws will thread into these two holes on the back plate. That's it. Now our suspension bracket is fully assembled again.